collect it? What's it from? Who has money coming? Why? And the clerk explained to him that when a bidder paid the county more for a property at the tax auction than what the delinquent property owner owed, the county held on to those extra funds and waited for the former owner to come in and collect them. You know, after all, the owner had just lost their property, and the county received more than what they were owed. So why shouldn't that owner get the leftover amount? Makes sense. And you know the really rotten thing, though? If the owner never showed up, the county got to keep those funds permanently after 3 years went by. So this was just about to happen one year. I think it was in the late 90s. The clerk told Jim that she was just about to seize the remaining unclaimed overages from the tax sale 3 years ago. I think it was in the hundreds of thousands or even millions at the time. And Jim was like, oh, my God, can you give me a list of those properties of money coming and those people that have the money coming and how much they have coming? And she gave him that list. Now, before I mentioned that these unclaimed funds were created when a bidder paid more at the tax sale or the mortgage foreclosure than what was owed. So why don't we do a quick example of that just to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, let's look at a property with a fair market value of $200,000, same one we were looking at before, that goes through the tax sale. And let's say after maybe 2 years of not paying the taxes, the county finally, 2 years of the owner not paying the taxes, the county finally offers that property at a tax sale auction so they can recover the delinquent taxes that they're owed. Now, lots of bidders are going to attend that tax sale, and they've got a pretty good idea when there's a valuable property in there somewhere. And in fact, they usually overpay for properties, in my opinion, and that's why buying at a tax sale doesn't give us good results, but it does play right into our hand for collecting these overages. So anyway, let's say that this owner was $10,000 behind in his taxes when the property was auctioned off, and that's almost going to be the starting point for the bidding. They're going to open the property up at $10,000. Now, you can imagine there's a lot of people who are both willing and able to pay $10,000 cash for a $200,000 property, and I mean like yesterday. And many of them will show up at the sale. So the bidding is going to go up and up until it reaches close to the fair market value of that property. You know, especially considering that you can't even inspect that property. You don't know what's going to be inside. So let's say for the sake of example that the bidding rises to $150,000 for this property. So the county's sitting on certified funds in the amount of $150,000. Now the first thing they do is they take their $10,000 out that they're owed for taxes. But what about that remaining $140,000 that they just collected? They put that aside for the former owner to come in and collect in a lot of states out there, at least about half the states. That's how that works. And the same thing can happen with a mortgage foreclosure. Now let's say somebody owes $100,000 on their mortgage and they don't make their payments. Well, the bank has the county sell off that property at a sheriff's sale or a trustee's sale, depending on what state it is. And someone, you know, just the same, they bid $150,000 for that property. Well, the sheriff or the trustee pays the bank in full, $100,000. That's what was owed. And then the county or the trustee ends up holding that remaining $50,000 for the former owner. Now, with mortgage foreclosures, you know, overages only happen in a tiny percentage of the cases, but with millions and millions of these foreclosures each year, it only takes a small percentage of them having an overage to add up to dozens of potential claims in just about every county. And you know, in fact, anytime you see a mortgage foreclosure sale where the bank starts the property off at what's owed and somebody else buys it at the sale, that means an overage is created automatically. That means somebody bid more than what was owed on the property. Now, as I'm going to show you in a minute, you don't have to look through millions of files, millions of foreclosure files, to find these nuggets of gold, these overages. The overages are always accounted for in one place, and the county has to keep track of those funds somewhere so they keep their books straight. So here is secret number one. The largest claims that you're going to run into and be able to profit from come from overbids at tax sales and mortgage foreclosure auctions. And this is the foundation of the found money business, so be sure to write that down. That is where we're definitely going to find our best claims, tax sales and mortgage foreclosure overages. And that's how counties end up with these large amounts of money they're holding for claimants that don't even know about it. You know, think about it. Maybe the former owner never even lived in that property, or their mailing address was incorrect at the time the tax sale happened. Maybe they moved before they were notified of the funds being available, if they were ever even notified at all. So let's take a minute and look at how these overage funds are different than unclaimed money that's held by states. Now, you've probably heard about those state funds before. State unclaimed funds are something that we really just don't even touch. Now, first of all, almost everybody knows about them. Have you ever seen websites or newspaper ads or even billboards that are sponsored by the state unclaimed funds office, and they put those up to tell people that there could be unclaimed money due to them? Well, almost every state is putting forth a big effort to advertise their unclaimed funds and reunite them with their owners. And I've even heard they set up booths at county fairs with computer terminals to get people to line up and search for that lost money. So to show you how easy it is to find funds held by the state, I'm going to search for myself on my state site right here. And to find any state site, usually if you just type in the state's name and unclaimed, you'll see it'll come right up. So let me just go ahead and type my name in here real quick. All right, now none of these Richard Dawsons are me, but this illustrates a few points that I really want to make sure you know. Now first, look at the amounts listed here, okay? They're not very big. I'm seeing $21, $32, $127. We're not going to be able to profit much working with small amounts like that. Now there's some big amounts in there, but they're mostly tiny amounts that we don't even want to play with. And you know, how hard would it be for a claimant to find their own funds if we work with state funds? They're pretty darn easy. That's the first place they're going to check when you contact them. Now, the worst thing of all, most states severely limit the amount that you can charge to collect state funds for somebody. They set these limits as low as 5%. Now, with all that said, make sure to search yourself sometime if you haven't done that on your state's unclaimed site. And I've had more than a few people tell me after a webinar like this that they found up to $400 that they had coming to themselves. So that'd be a nice little surprise. Now, there's an unclaimed funds website, I bet, for just about every single state. Right here I've got the one for Florida, and you can see it's the same kind of thing, really easy to find. You just type in your name and your city and state, and they'll find your money. Same thing with Georgia, name and city. So not too hard for claimants to find their money there. Now, these state funds, that's how I first heard about the unclaimed money recovery business over 10 years ago. A long time ago, I found a little ebook on the internet that showed you how to get state unclaimed funds lists and send letters to the claimants with a little claim form attached and make 10% of the claim as a fee. And the author said she worked